Hi, my name is Shane Adams. I work with Sylvanus Conteh on looking at the Medibank cyber attack in 2022. As part of this presentation, I'm doing the introduction, then Sylvanus will take you through the timeline of the attack on Medibank in 2022, the possible vulnerabilities that were exploited by the malicious actors against Medibank. He'll then look at who the criminals were that were responsible for the attack, and then after that I'll take you through the impact on Medibank and what the long-lasting impacts will be. And then towards the end, I'll then look at the measures that could have been taken by Medibank to thwart the attack and or mitigate the impact on the organisation. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Sylvanus Conteh, and I'm going to do a quick presentation on the 2022 Medibank cyber attack, and I'm doing this in conjunction with my colleague Shane Adams. Now, as an introduction, the 2022 Medibank cyber attack marked one of Australia's most significant data breaches, affecting about 9.7 million individuals. It exposed critical flaws in credential management and network security, leading to the compromise of sensitive personal and health information. Now, this presentation will outline, firstly, the timeline of the attack, secondly, the vulnerabilities exploited, thirdly, uh, the identity of those who were involved in the attack. Uh, the fourth and the fifth part of this presentation will be presented by my colleague Shane Adams, and he will be talking about the broader implications and the prevention strategies that should have been used to foil that attack. The timeline of the attack. Now, the Medibank breach began before the 7th of August 2022 when an IT contractor stored admin credentials in a personal browser synced to an unsecured device. Hackers used the credentials to test access to Medibank's Microsoft Exchange server on the 12th of August 2022, and by the 23rd of August 2022, they breached Medibank's virtual private network, which is the VPN. Security alerts flagged unusual activities between the 24th and the 25th of August, but these were not appropriately triaged or escalated, further allowing the hackers to continue undetected. By the mid of October, about 520 gigabytes of personal data, including health and identification records, had been exfiltrated. Medibank identified suspicious activity on the 13th of October, but initially claimed that no breach had occurred. On, on the 17th of October, a hacker contacted Medibank requesting for a ransom. The company confirmed the attack by the 20th of October 2022. On the 9th of November, data started becoming leaked on the dark web, and these included sensitive clients' health information. The vulnerabilities exploited, what are those? Now, key weaknesses included poor credential management, enabling unauthorized access, and the lack of multi-factor authentication for the VPN, meaning that stolen credentials alone sufficed for the hackers to access the network. Security alerts were mishandled, and this reflects gaps in the threat management protocols of Medibank. Additionally, the absence of network segmentation allowed attackers to move laterally from one system to another to extract data across Medibank's databases. The identity of the attackers. The attack was traced to a Russian ransomware syndicate known as Revel. Alexander Emakov has been identified as a key player and a member of the Revel group, known to be using aliases such as Blade Runner and Jim Jones. Now, Emakov demanded nearly $10 million in ransom from Medibank, and Medibank refused to pay that ransom in alignment with the Australian federal police policy. Now, despite Medibank's refusal to negotiate, the breach underscores Revel's resilience and adaptability, and thereby emphasizing what the Queensland government refers to as the need for vigilance in the face of an increasing threat environment.
As Sylvanus has explained, the impact of the Medibank cyber attack was to have the data of 9.7 million Australians released onto the dark web when Medibank failed to pay the ransom imposed by the criminals that undertook the attack. Now, obviously, there's been a huge impact on the reputation of Medibank, that they were able to be exploited in such a way to lose such sensitive data, particularly sensitive medical data of individuals onto the dark web. Now, the main impact on Medibank in the short to medium term has been the costs of both rectifying the data breach, the legal costs of trying to undertake analysis of what occurred, and then the ongoing impact for Medibank will be the proceedings instituted by the Australian Information Commissioner. Under Australian privacy law, the theoretical potential for penalties against Medibank are $2.2 million per breach, and the fact that there were 9.7 million Australians affected means that theoretically that Medibank could be up for $21 trillion in penalties. That's obviously an unlikely scenario, but it shows you the potential impact of privacy breaches that occur because of attacks where reasonable steps haven't been taken by an organisation. Separately, there are also shareholder proceedings against Medibank for allowing the cyber attack to happen. And then also separately, there are representative complaints by several law firms under the Privacy Act, which will also have potential far-reaching implications if compensation is due to all the consumers affected by the attack. You'll see in our report that some of the costs to date have been up to $125 million to deal with the attack itself, but then the potential for penalties and compensation down the track are significant for the organisation. There are a number of areas where organisations can undertake certain tasks to thwart potential cyber attacks and or mitigate the impact of cyber attacks. In the report, we've outlined a number of different areas that Medibank could have undertaken to thwart or reduce the impact of this attack that was so devastating for so many Australians. The two that we've focused on that are seen to be more sort of commonplace now for cybersecurity, and the first is multi-factor authentication. The fact that a third-party vendor for the organisation was able to take their login credentials and log in, have those obtained under a malicious attack, and that the attackers were then able to just simply use the credentials to log into the Medibank system are quite extraordinary in the current cybersecurity climate. It would have been easy for Medibank to have multi-factor authentication. That would have thwarted the attack. The malicious actors would not have been able to get past sort of first base really to get into the organisation. That seems a very obvious and reasonable step that could have been undertaken by Medibank. Notwithstanding that the attack did occur, the other obvious area of concern for Medibank was the fact that the malicious actors had access to their system for some weeks and months prior to it being detected. There were some flags within the system early on that data was being extracted, but there were very limited surveillance areas within the cybersecurity network for Medibank that they should have really been made aware of much earlier, which would have reduced or negated the 520 gigabits of data of consumer sensitive personal information was stolen from Medibank. So those are the two main ones in this situation. Multi-factor authentication seems to be a standard cybersecurity approach now, to particularly for highly sensitive credentials and access to most highly sensitive parts of systems within an organisation. So that's an obvious one that Medibank could have undertaken, and it's the basis of the proceedings that the Australian Information Commissioner has taken against Medibank. And then, as I've said, the other area that even if you are attacked and your systems are compromised, if you have good incident response plans in place, you're able to reduce and mitigate the potential impact.